Zack Semke, director of Passive House Accelerator and co-host of the Passive House podcast with Matthew Cutler Welsh. I'd like to thank you for joining us for this special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast, recorded as part of the 25th International Passive House Conference, which occurred online in September 2021. Before we get started with this episode's interview, I'd like to thank the Passive House Institute and the International Passive House Association for collaborating with us to arrange these interviews. Also, a big thank you to our sponsors who make the podcast possible. Our founding sponsors are 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxt Ingwe Architects, Glavel Foam Glass Gravel, Minutair All-in-One HVAC and Dehumidification Units, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, RDH Building Science, Rockwool North America, Stocorp, and Zola Windows. Our champion sponsors are Icon Windows and Doors and SIGA. And our stakeholder partner is NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. With that, please enjoy my interview with Berthold Kaufmann, researcher at Passive House Institute. Well, welcome to this special episode of the Passive House podcast, recorded as part of the International Passive House Conference. And I am here with Berthold Kaufmann of Passive House Institute. Welcome, Berthold.
Hi, welcome, Zack.
Yeah,
thank you for calling. Well, yeah,
absolutely. So maybe we can start, if you wouldn't mind, by if you could introduce yourself and your work at the Institute for listeners.
Well, I'm this what you call senior scientist. And in Passive House Institute we are meanwhile about 50 people, but everybody can in principle do everything. And I started with component certification with Windows and detailed calculation of window qualities. But then very early took part of our seminars. So, we do seminars for experts, so further education for experts. And there I want to go to make my subjects part of the seminars. And this is continually get more and more. Well, and meanwhile, I moved from the building envelope to the building service. So ventilation, and especially the ventilation combined with the heat pump to get the ventilation, heating, and cooling more effective and especially energy efficient. Well, and from the kind of business point of view, about 10 years ago, the first Chinese request came. They asked, well, we know you do. There is something with Passive House. We want to join. We want to. And Wolfgang Feist, there was a project then here and there. They called Bruck in nearby Shanghai, a hotel building, and the people were there, and we discussed. It was the Innsbruck conference, and we were there at the round table, and Wolfgang said, well, you may be the project leader. Just do it. And so I came more and more to this China business, and I tried to coordinate a little bit, but hopefully, there are colleagues right now who support us, and Chinese colleagues who can do it as well. So we work quite well together. Well, and this combination of ventilation and heat pump systems, this is an idea what was born for the Chinese southern climate. So where you need definitely cooling and dehumidification, and but the same is for Florida. Yeah, for the southern of the United States, you need it the same way. But to be honest, Chinese are a little bit earlier with that subject.
No kidding.
And as you know, Bronwyn, she is eager to get these systems.
Bronwyn Berry.
To Bronwyn Berry to have it in for California. Well,
no kidding.
And so, but I think it's quite well, things coming together, matching, and so I like it. Well,
Yeah, well, I mean, what exciting work that what has
Mm,
gone on in China in the last 10 years
mm,
under, during your watch has been really remarkable and inspiring in terms of
mm,
that explosion of passive house going on.
mm.
So you have been with the Institute then for at least 10 years because you were assigned the China portfolio 10 years ago. When did you join PHI?
It was 2000,
Yeah.
first
Wow.
October 2000. So
Uh,
it's now about 21 years. Well,
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. And your background is as an architect and as a physicist, is that right? Or
yes,
what? Yeah.
physicist. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
In my former life, I did semiconductor physics,
Oh, wow.
experimental.
Okay.
So optics,
Great.
a
Great. Great.
little bit different. Well,
I want to jump into as soon as we can learning more about your work around mechanicals and your presentation that you shared.
mm,
But before we get there, just big picture with the experience of the conference and the kind of messages and insights that were shared at the conference. What are some of the key takeaways for you, or what was your experience like at the 25th International Passive House Conference?
what was for me very impressive is two people from UK. One lady from UK and the other from Ireland. They reported about economics from renovation and new build and energy efficient buildings, the economy. We need a little bit more money for the extra passive house components, but we have so much earnings so high so far, so to say, from the savings.
Hmm.
And they pointed out you should just calculate the right way, and you should check that everybody has a benefit and not only the load. So housing companies sometimes only have the load, and the benefit have the tenants or maybe the government with less effort for this and that. And so we have to check carefully to get the motivation and the loads and everything correctly spread out so that everybody can live with it. And this is a challenge on the one hand, but it's quite clear how it could work. And I think, and I've seen from that, we should explain in more detail and very clearly where to go, how to manage, and then I think it will work. Well, not from itself, but it will be somehow easier to go for the big business to check that there are energy efficient components for buildings should be not a problem to use. Yeah. So
Right.
we need houses, we need buildings to do them better and better so that we do not need so much fuel, because fossil fuel will be expensive in the future. It's almost a self-running job. Should be. Well,
Right.
and the
Right.
question is why it's not
Yeah.
yet
Yeah.
understood by everybody. And so I think we should not complain that they do not understand, but we should help them to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, and the other was there were some very nice renovation projects from all over the world, and just to see how they did this and that and that, and counted one by one to get it running. So it's always interesting to see the new the effort and the outcome what people did. And well, by the way, this is the reason why we do this conference, so that people come together once a year, and this is why you do the conference and the Passive House Accelerator, the events. The people should show to each other what is going on. Well, and from these examples we can learn.
Yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
and show all these different ways that
Yeah.
design challenges have been overcome and
Mm.
and share lessons about what pitfalls to avoid. That's so important.
Mm.
So moving on to your presentation about ventilation systems, and you were speaking about combining ventilation with heat pumps for heating, cooling, and domestic hot water. And I think you were drawing a lot from data that you were showing data from China. Can you share with listeners a couple of the key points that you were making there? Maybe some of the things that might not be on the top of passive house practitioners' minds who aren't working in cooling dominated climates. Please.
Well, first of all, this combination of ventilation with balanced airflow, so air in, air out, balanced, and with the heat recovery, to combine it with a heating and cooling coil is not a big deal. First, so it's basic engineering.
Right.
The problems or the special things come when you go into detail, because if you go there and you see for heating and cooling with a coil, you need most time circulation airflow, not only air in, air out. And if you mix and combine it, the circulation airflow with the air in, air out airflow, you realize that the pressure ratios will get into trouble. So if you start the circulation fan, this may blow against the air in airflow. And so the development of such systems is a little bit delicate because of that. Yeah. And so the last 2 to 3 years, we have, unfortunately, some manufacturers who started to develop, and we supported them. And we discuss just these challenges with them to get ready-to-use machines. Yeah, the first projects, by the way, this was a report from Rolf Demmler from Shanghai. Together with him, we made a project in Tianjin more than 5 years ago, 2 high-rise buildings. And there they had to do the ventilation and the heating coil with a separate system, 2 separate systems. And they had many challenges to get everything work. So the engineers had to do it on site. Yeah. Now with the combined machines, we can do it with a plug and play, just ready to use. But it was not easy for the manufacturers to come there. And there are still challenges to get it to work correctly.
Right.
Well, and the second challenge is, we discussed it yesterday again with Miwa Mori, architect from Japan. She did has the same problem in the South Japan for cooling and dehumidification. The issue with passive house is, or the chance with passive house, better to say, we need not so high sensible cooling. We reduce the sensible cooling by shading, by reducing internal heat losses from hot water and computers and lighting and so on. So we very well were able to reduce the waste heat in summertime, which will tend to overheat our buildings. So therefore, we need lower sensible cooling. Well, but a standard air conditioning system, you know it from US, it's typical stuff. A standard air conditioning system is assuming, well, you need a high sensible cooling.
Right.
Therefore, you have to cool down your cooling coil below dew point anyway, always. So the dehumidification goes as a side effect. Yeah. So and technically spoken, the sensible and the sensible cooling is 70%, and the latent cooling, the dehumidification, is 30%. 30%. Right. And this is the normal fraction for a conventional system. Well, but if you come with that system to a passive house building, you will overcool.
Right.
And so if you cool down below dew point always, as you need, the air coming out will be too cold and people will freeze inside. So what will they do? Or the controller will shut down the system. Well, but the water will be in the coil and will re-evaporate.
Right.
So you have two chances. Otherwise, either it will be too cold or it will be too humid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So therefore, our recommendation or requirement for the passive house, the systems for passive house is it has to be 50-50 about. Lower sensible cooling, but the same with same fraction of dehumidification. Well, and to do so, again, it's quite simple. You have to reheat the air, what you have cooled down below dew point, so that the sensible cooling power is correct, yeah, is appropriate for the apartment. Okay, but doing so is a little bit challenge for the engineers to adjust, yeah, because you need the second coil. Well, we do not want to have this reheating with electricity. But simply spoken, you can take the waste heat from the outside unit. You can take part of the outside unit to the inner. You have two coils, and then the second coil will reheat so that it's appropriate, and you have to control it. Well, and this is a little bit tricky, but manageable. So, but the manufacturers more or less, how many units do you sell per year? Can we sell? And so, as passive houses are not so many so far, they just refuse to do something in that direction.
Right.
And the most crazy argument against it, this is what Mifa Mori told me yesterday. She said, well, the manufacturers say, well, we need no shading in passive house. We need the heat to reheat. Well, so we need the high.
You're doing too good a job. Stop with the.
So they just turn around the argument and say,
right.
well, you're shading. It's crazy. We need the heat so that our systems can work properly.
Oh, man.
And so I think it's quite instructive for me to understand their thinking.
Yeah.
Well, you see, they argue, and so
yeah.
Well, what I wanted to say in short words, it is obviously important that we here and then explain it once again and once again and once again. And this is what we do now since about 3 to 4 years. And yes, it is technically no big deal, yeah. But in some details, it is tricky, and this we have to overcome. And the systems afterwards will be not more expensive than before.
Right.
The second coil maybe a little bit, but they will be more effective. There will be a lower consumption, low power, and hopefully better COP and seasonal performance factors. But if the principle is understood and the design is redesigned, the production cost will not be higher than for conventional systems, I think. Well, and this is our work to do. Well,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine China, the volume of work in China might help spur on manufacturers, hopefully in the future, to make that move. Yeah, I was also struck by your comparison of the coefficient of performance, the COP, of heat pumps compared to mechanical ventilation with heat recovery units, so compared to HRVs and ERVs. And it makes total sense, but seeing the numbers was pretty striking. I mean, I think a lot of us think of the kind of the magic of phase change and what that does for heat pumps, you know, with excitement, and we see a COP of 3 and are rightly impressed. But you point out that HRVs and ERVs can have COPs of 10 to 15. And so this argument so it's so important for us not to then throw out mechanical ventilation in our projects. We need to harness that fantastic efficiency in our projects.
By the way, this is a typical feature of a passive measure. It's the same as let the sunshine come in through your windows.
Right.
If you can use direct solar gains, you need no machine, no heat pump, no nothing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is with a passive heat recovery. You just use the potential of the inside to outside temperature to reheat the incoming air with the outgoing air. So, and if the potential, so the difference from inside to outside is high, you need just no heat pump, you need just the fan to drive the airflow.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore it's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it gets a little bit if you go in detail with the overall season, you will see producing hot water in summertime and so on. There, the heat recovery will not work, will not help. Yeah, so heat pumps are needed and are a good idea to have here and there for the active cooling, yes, and for the heating if you really need active heating and so on, and active cooling. But just as the second step, the second part. So the first part we see clearly is in winter time anyway, because in cold region the temperature difference is very high. And the second is the performance of a heat pump will degrade very much if you get below 0 degrees centigrade. Yeah. So you will get some COP of maybe 1.5 or 2,
mm-hmm.
but not more. Yeah. And therefore, this is the main thing. Heat pump is needed, but you should support it by the passive heat recovery as good as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same is true for summer. If it's very hot outside and you cool down anyway, you have internally 25 and outside 35, you have again 10 degrees Kelvin different. You can use this potential for pre-cooling. Yeah. And then the rest, obviously, you do with a heat pump to cool down. Yeah.
Right. Looking ahead, where do you see Passive House going? Either in your world or in the broader movement. What's on the horizon in 3 years?
Well, I think, and we should convince more people to go for it. Yeah. And by the way, I was very impressed always by this Lois Arena. What projects she and her team do with Stephen Winter. They are struggling with cost. Yeah, and it's no secret. We are discussing sometimes about the best way to do here and there. But the big developers who are looking at each cent to spend or not, mm-hmm. The discussion is hard, yes. But I think we have to keep quite clearly that only the best components are good enough. Yeah, and we have to get down the cost for this. Yeah, by mass production and this and that. So this is true for windows. This is true for insulation and all these facade things for thermal bridge optimization. But this is true for building service, mm-hmm. ventilation, heat pump, and so on. Well, so it's a task, I think, especially for the architects to help the developers to get good buildings for a reasonable price. Yeah. Second is we have to convince government to get this organized. What I said in the beginning, you should not only the developers or housing companies have to do the investment, but they have to see some of the revenue. Yeah,
right.
If it's not balanced, why should they do it? Yeah, and I think there is some things what we have to change with the tax system and the subsidy system, and here and there to get money the right flow. Yeah, if only fossil fuels are subsidized, well, why should we stop using mineral oil if it's so cheap? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is political. So the price of energy and the price of electricity should tell the truth.
Right.
Well, and especially with a combined system, we now talked about ventilation combined with heat pump for heating, cooling, but the hot water is missing in this combination yet. And there are 2 systems already on the market to do all 4. So ventilation with heat recovery, heating, cooling, and hot water. But all the systems what we have from China, they do the hot water separately, and this should be integrated, I think, because especially in summertime, you can use some of the waste heat for very effectively for hot water preparation.
Sure, yeah.
And so the box will be a little bit larger, but the combination will help.
Yeah.
Well, it's work to be done, but I think.
Yeah, well, it'll keep us busy.
Yes, and well, if we work everybody together, and by the way, I really appreciate your presentations from Passive House Accelerator.
Oh, thank you.
All this, what you organize. It's a pity it's so late in the night.
I know, it's horribly, and we are shifting so that at least once a month we're doing a program that is at a sane hour for you in Germany.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I will look out.
Right.
But this time when during the NAFN conference we did last year, we joined, and it was hard for me to be awake, but it was very nice to call with people, 20 people from here and there.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. It's a very nice marketplace and communication place for being there.
It's been fun.
By the way, this is another thing what I think will be better, thanks of you and others, the communication about the subject. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Our IFA, they are working you with a Passive House Accelerator and here and there. Tell people about what's going on, what's possible, and that is fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the chance to have conversations like these. So thank you. This has really been a great conversation, Berthold. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close up?
Well, I'm happy that my colleagues managed this conference, conference, so very well. Yeah. And I just want to thank you as a colleague to their to the team.
Yeah.
Well, I did not have a great job on that. I only one session to contribute, but I realized what they did these 4 days and the weeks before and a half a year before. And well, thank you very much to my colleagues. Well.
Yeah, well said. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Great. Well, be well, Berthold. We'll catch up at another time. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. See you. Bye-bye.